Welcome to Buzz House, a Baker Tilly podcast where you can hear all the buzz around multifamily housing with all the info you need to help you win now and anticipate tomorrow. Hi, I'm Don Bernards, the principal in charge of Baker Tilly's multifamily housing practice.
And I'm Garrett Gibson, a principal at Baker Tilly, also specializing in consulting on multifamily housing transactions across the country.
Let's get started. On the Buzz House, we talk about many parts of the affordable housing development ecosystem and how it takes a lot to pull these projects together. We've also had the opportunity to spotlight a few educational cohorts, bringing together training that highlights these many components of the real estate development process. Today, our guest in the Buzz House is Aron Thompson, Executive Director of the R.E.D Academy in Nashville, Tennessee. Thank you very much for joining us today, Aron. Appreciate your time.
Thank you all for having me.
We will be talking with Aron about how this program in Nashville is helping developers of color by providing education and supporting the growth of their business to in turn support the Nashville community. I'm going to turn it over to Garrett to jump right into our discussion with Aron. Garrett?
Thanks, Don. And Aron, thanks for being on this episode of Buzz House. Before we jump in with some questions, would you please give our listeners some insight into the R.E.D Academy?
Absolutely. I would love to. The R.E.D Academy is a program of the Urban League Middle Tennessee, supported and powered by Amazon. It came out of Amazon's big housing equity fund that they did across 3 markets, Nashville, Seattle, and Arlington, everywhere they have their HQ, with the intent to help identify not only to develop more affordable housing, but also then look at who's developing affordable housing and realizing we have a significant gap and figuring out, hey, who can I partner with to help bring these next emerging developers up to scale. And so that was kind of the birth of R.E.D Academy. And we provide training, mentorship, and access to capital for these emerging developers in the market. And so here in Nashville, we are on cohort number 2. We started our first journey back in 22, graduated a cohort at the end of 23, and then started a new cohort at the beginning of 24, and they will graduate at the end of 25.
Awesome. So what is the thesis behind Nashville being chosen for this first market?
I think we were blessed enough to just have Amazon come to our market. I think that was kind of the antithesis for it. You know, when they were scouring the country, figuring out where their HQs were going to go, Nashville became one of those targeted markets. And luckily enough for us, we actually landed one of the HQ. I think they had talked about one point in time, like putting it solely on the East Coast. And I think they decided to split it in 2. So they have half of the people here in Nashville and another half in Arlington. And so I think, Amazon knows who Amazon is, and they also understand the Amazon effect when they come into a market. And so we were blessed enough that when they came in the market, they are not only good community partners, but also good stewards to the community and giving back. And so this is one of those ways that they gave back tremendously.
Very good. Thanks for that, Aron. Kind of next question is about the types of, you mentioned you're kind of in your second cohort, and just the question is getting at the type of or background of the participants in the cohort. And we know development has all kinds of real estate development, from single family homes to, 20 unit apartments, 80 unit apartments, and so on and so forth, and rehabs, new construction. What is the background of the participants in your cohort from that experience level, and maybe from where they are today, from then through that, is it 18 months or the length of the cohort? What kind of projects do they hope to do when they kind of, quote unquote, graduate from the cohort?
I appreciate it. Yeah. So one of the cool things I think about our program is I thought it was just helping developers get to scale. What I realized is housing is the output of it, but it's really kind of a wraparound services for small businesses, right? Because developers, for most part, really, they are small businesses, right? They're 1, 2, 3-man shops for the most part. And then they have a team of people that they lean on, but they're not typically under their entity umbrella. And what we realized also was that the individuals who come through our program, a lot of them have the background of GC, home builder, realtor, investor, developer. They were fixing and flipping, doing 1s and 2s, maybe some quad or duplexes. And their scale sizes were anywhere between 7 units annually, like 5 to 7 units annually. But after going through R.E.D Academy, they're now somewhere north of 70 units annually that they're developing. So, being intentional about the full wraparound services that you can help provide for these small businesses, I think has been the game changer, because they're emerging. They're getting out of doing what they normally do, And you guys know development is a long game, right? It's not a short game. And if you're in it for the short game, you're going to have a lot of lumps and bruises. So once I realized, like, okay, they need additional things just besides the knowledge and the capital. They also need support, back office support. They also need the introductory to some people like a Baker Tilly. And so, how can we then include all that into the program? Because then you're supported as you start to do a project that you start in 22 and it doesn't wrap up until 25, right? So you got to be prepared and you got to have a team around you that supports you through that journey.
Thank you for the insight, Aron. And that kind of really leads to my next question is what are some of these challenges you're seeing and your members of your cohort are facing to get started in larger scale? And some of it is probably back office, right? They're entrepreneurs or small businesses. They might know real estate, but back office. So what are some of those hurdles you're seeing? And maybe how does the curriculum kind of address that?
Yeah, a lot of them coming in were always trying to figure out how to get to scale, but didn't know exactly how. And I call it the if but fors. The if but for I have access to capital, if but for I have access to land, if but for I had a mentor, if but for I had some of this knowledge and training. And come to find out, for most small businesses, if you can remove those if but fors out of the way, could they go scale? And the answer, of course, is yes. So for a lot of them, that access to capital is a huge barrier because if you are a fixer flipper ones and twos home builder and you are now looking to get to scale, you might have to take capital from that bread and butter to go do the new scale thing. Well, if it takes longer than what you expected, if it has any hiccups or whatever, not only and you lose money or it hurts you, not only could it kill the new entity that you're trying to go do, but it could also kill your bread and butter, right? And so you might be wiped out, period. And so that's the last thing you want to do as a small business. So I think where Red Academy stepped in was providing not only that instructional, the curriculum piece, but also provided that kind of wrap around that networking piece, right? To know who at the housing authority is in charge of the 4% and 9%, to know who at the local housing authority does the PVVs, right? To identify, who at city council and planning is pro growth, who struggles with growth, but who has a specific need that they want to try to accomplish. So how do you kind of take all those things that would have took you, 2, 3, 4 years to kind of amass that you can cram all those in our 20-month program? And so those developers, I think, have learned the lesson of your network becomes your net worth and tapping into not only the program itself, but also into where you want to grow and go. And then figuring out how you can pull in those teammates, those individuals from Red Academy to help you continue to scale and grow. And so that's what we're excited about, some of the stuff that they're working on and how they're kind of progressing.
Thanks for that. I like that. Your network is your net worth. That's a good one. I like to shift gears just slightly because as we discussed earlier in intro, you had a couple of cohorts in Nashville. Are you looking to expand into other geographies? And, what's next for Red Academy?
Thank you for that. So one of the things that I think is unique, Nashville, of course, is not unlike any other market, has been growing. All right. But Nashville has really been hot for probably the last decade or so. And so one of the things I got excited about was when I tell people I'm from Nashville, they get all excited, like, oh my gosh, man, tell me about the growth. Like what's happening here, what's happening there. And I'm like, if this thing can work here in Nashville, maybe it can work outside of Nashville. And so that's one of the things we tried to figure out. What did we have? And is this worth taking to other markets to see if it can land? And so we have been talking with a couple of markets. The next one that's kind of closest on the horizon is the Hampton Roads, Southern Virginia, Hampton Roads area. That one's kind of been the next key market I think that we're going to target and kind of push forward to see if we can make a program like this work in that area. Because housing's an issue it's a national issue. Well, actually, it's a global issue, really. And so, if we can help those individuals who are from there, who live there, who work there, build up their own communities, that's a win-win instead of having to have people come from outside the market to develop in your market.
Yes, that is definitely important. And we see a lot of success with that. You also mentioned earlier, obviously, we talked about your partnerships like Amazon. Can you discuss the importance and impact of leveraging a company like Amazon and how this has actually transformed and impacted the cohort members and the program?
Yeah, having Amazon at the table to really push the narrative around affordable housing. And Don, you mentioned this earlier that there are a litany of different types of affordable housing, right? There is home ownership, there is build to rent, there is mixed income, there's mixed use, I mean, you name it, right? You can kind of go down the litany. So there's no one like affordable housing piece that fits for every neighborhood and community. But having an entity like an Amazon come to the table and want to have that discussion and push that narrative, I think is extremely important. And I wish there were more corporations and entities that are willing to have that conversation and talk about what that does. Because quality housing for people who want to stay within those communities is an economic driver, is a workforce driver, is an education driver, is a transportation driver, is an engagement driver, is a political driver. Like it makes sense, right? Quality housing for people who want to stay in this community has got to be one of those things that I would think any corporation, because then hopefully you don't have turnover, right? People are not leaving because they can't afford to stay here anymore and they got to go live in another county. Well, now you just lost a worker. I can't drive 45 minutes every single day to come to work. It's just not feasible for me, right? And so I'm better off finding something where I have to live now. That to me, corporation wise, where we struggle in this day and age to find quality workforce, has to be something that every corporation has got to be saying, look, what can I do to help? How can I be a part of the conversation? It becomes a healthcare driver, right? Now, if I'm less stressed from being in traffic all day or having to deal with the kids or the house note or the mortgage, now I'm a better productive worker, right? And my health costs go down, right? So hospitals feel happy. Like it helps everybody. Like, why do we have to make this more difficult than what it is? So yeah, I wish there would be more. But Amazon has been wonderful. Kudos to them for pushing the narrative and to be in a space, truthfully honest, that this is not their bread and butter either, right? They're not in the affordable housing space. They're a technology company at the end of the day. So to see them in this space, I think is impactful, and we need more corporations stepping up.
Very good. No, thank you for that, Aron. Ron, just maybe kind of one last question for you. And I know you're on your second cohort. Your first cohort's been completed. Any stories, or have you keep in touch? Or I mean, what are some outcomes, and do you keep in touch? I think that's something we talk around various cohorts. How do you? It's I think there's value, right, in staying connected even after that intense training.
100% we stay connected, Don. Once you become part of the Red Academy, you're Red Academy for life. And so hopefully they all feel the same way as we do, but we really are intentional about helping them strategically move forward. We talk with our alumni about half as much as we talk to our current cohort, just because we see our current cohort a lot more. But we stay engaged with them. They're in and around the community. They're participating in leadership roles. That was one thing that I think I was a little bit proud of too, in that from that first cohort, we end up with a lot of people now being in leadership roles within the city, whether they're sitting on boards and commissions, whether they're trusted advisors now for a lot of different things that are happening in their community. So I think that's important. But we talk about wins or highlights that we want to put out there. And one of the things that I'm really happy to say is from that first graduating cohort, which had 11 individuals graduate, we're looking at a little bit under 900 units of affordable housing coming to market from that group, which I think is impressive, right? And that ranges from senior living, that ranges from mixed income, that ranges from home ownership, all within that first cohort. And then if you take the second cohort, we're looking at right now about 600 units from this cohort. And that same, it's the hotel motel conversion type projects. So deep affordable units. We're talking about veteran housing. We're talking about disabled and permanent supportive housing. We're talking about just mixed income. We're talking about workforce housing. So all those are kind of mashed into, what we do. And so, I feel like not that Iran is coming up with anything magical or whatever. We're using the tools that are already in place. It's just deploying that out so that the individuals who go through the program can now understand the right tool for the right job. And so that they're not chasing the dollars, they're finding the right tool that goes with the project type they're looking for. And I think matching that up with somebody who's from the community, who wants to do something for the community, and is actually starting to do stuff at scale that has bigger impact and imprint, I think that's a win-win for everybody. And so to add on to that, one of the things I think is awesome about the program is the connectivity between the alumni and the current cohort. Because one, we're in a region like a Middle Tennessee and a Nashville, there's a lot of potential growth and a lot of potential opportunities, but sometimes you can't do that by yourself. And so you have to look at opportunities for JV. And I think one of the cool things about these smaller cohorts is it allows the ability for the alumni and the current cohort to JV together. kind of creating that community feel amongst themselves too, so they can share and kind of grow with one another, because it feels good to be able to look across, and see somebody willing to help you that looks like you, but then also help kind of take that next step and leap. And so as you are a cohort member going through the program, you're learning some new things, you're identifying some new things, but you actually can implement some of those things with the help of the alumni. And so I think that community feel that they get from one another, to be able to not feel threatened in the real estate field, that you have to go to a competitor to ask a question. You can ask somebody who you're familiar with and be able to say, hey, what about this? Or, hey, I'm struggling with this. Or, hey, do you know about this? That I think is awesome. We will continue to kind of create that system everywhere we go when we expand into other markets, because those individuals help kind of grow that market organically, just by way of working together with one another as they continue to grow and go.
Definitely incredible impacts in just such a short time. And I'd like to look at this 5 years from now, right, and see what all these wonderful people are doing. So that's it for this episode of The Buzz House, catching up with Aron Thompson, Executive Director of the R.E.D Academy, discussing how the Academy creates a learning platform for developers to grow and in turn add value to the community of Nashville and beyond. Thanks again, Aron, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. For additional resources around multifamily housing, check out bakertilly.com. If you have a suggestion for the show, email us at build@bakertilly.com. That's BUILD at bakertilly.com. See you next time on Buzz House.